What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So it seems like every other year, I wind up recommending the regular iPhone as a pretty good upgrade. I think there's generally been a few reasons for that. First and foremost, year over year, Apple and most other smartphone companies haven't been making substantial enough upgrades to justify buying the new phone. And we know this. Some years, the newest iPhone is more of a light refresh, what we used to call an S year. In doing that, it's also allowed people to feel more comfortable skipping an iPhone every other year or so. Most people just don't upgrade every single year like they used to, simply because there's not usually enough new stuff to justify it. Last year, I wholeheartedly recommended the iPhone 15 because compared to the awful iPhone 14, it was a substantial upgrade in so many ways. It brought USB-C to the iPhone. The cameras were totally different. The screen was brighter, the processor was bumped up. It encompassed what an actual upgrade should be on a new iPhone. With all that in mind, I'm sure you can see why I'm sort of having a hard time outright recommending this year's iPhone 16 as that must-have upgrade once again. I mean, arguably, there are some new things on this phone. Camera control, for better or worse, an even bigger bump up in processor, RAM, and overall performance, a continued emphasis on camera improvements. Apple even took some time to improve the battery life and charging speeds to some extent. And, oh yeah, Apple Intelligence is also here, kind of. In any other year, that would all probably be enough to say, yeah, this is for sure an upgrade over last year. But honestly, I feel like half the stuff I listed just now are gimmicks, and the other half of the list is stuff that a lot of people just don't care much about. Now, rather than immediately ranting, let me start off by talking about the good improvements most everyone will appreciate. The new color options this year are actually pretty nice. This bright pink iPhone has drawn more attention than last year's pale pastels, for sure. And I know it sounds dumb, but people like showing off new things that they bought, and they like having something that looks different than whatever their old thing was. It's vain and illogical and irrelevant, but think about how crazy people got over the original gold iPhone 5 or the jet black iPhone 7 or the XR when it launched. People loved having a colorful iPhone for the first time back then, and they still like having fun, funky colors today. Battery life on the new iPhone 16 has also been noticeably better. I don't know why, but the last couple of years, Apple and really everyone else just haven't put much attention towards longevity on these smartphones. Battery sizes haven't gotten any bigger, no one is touting multi-day usage or extreme screen on time thresholds, but Apple quietly added a little extra juice to the iPhone 16. And I think thanks to the new processor and iOS 18's optimization, this phone is easily lasting me a full day with 20 to 25% left over. On top of that, Apple has also bumped up the MagSafe charging speeds to 25 watt, and coupled with the 15 watt Qi 2 speeds for non-MagSafe accessories and 25 watt wired charging over USB-C, as long as you have the right Apple certified or high quality charging accessories, you should be spending way less time plugged in. And a couple accessories I would personally recommend actually are these from EcoFlow, this video's sponsor. First off, please get yourself a fast charging brick and a high quality cable. This pair is EcoFlow's rapid 30 watt GAN charger and 60 watt USB-C cable. Not only will you get max charging speeds on the iPhone, 50% juice in just 25 minutes, but it can also fast charge an iPad Pro, for example, to 50% in 45 minutes. And the charger's foldable compact design is perfect for taking it wherever inside whatever, a bag or a pocket. It's smaller than a lot of other chargers out there while still packing in that GAN charging technology, which means it's fast, efficient, and produces less heat. If you prefer an on-the-go setup, EcoFlow's rapid magnetic power bank gives you another 5,000 milliamp battery strapped right to the back of your iPhone. That's a bigger battery than the iPhone has itself. It charges the iPhone wirelessly via the Qi 2 standard at 15 watt, twice as fast as the 7.5 watt off-brand chargers you'll see on Amazon, and it can also plug directly into the USB-C port on the iPhone thanks to its built-in cable for the maximum 30 watt charging speeds. It's also sleek and portable and multifunctional too. It's got its own little kickstand, so you can prop your iPhone up while you watch something. These are the fast charging accessories your iPhone deserves, and EcoFlow is offering them at a steep discount now through December 2nd. Click the links in the video description below to snag those deals and use that code you see on screen for an additional 7% off. So when it comes to the camera improvements on the iPhone 16, while Apple has been putting all of their time, money, and attention into making this the best picture taker possible that isn't a pro iPhone, mind you, I think most people just aren't going to be reaping the full benefits of Apple's efforts. There's both diminishing marginal returns and a certain expectation of user experience and understanding that just caps the camera setup overall as people go about their day-to-day life using it. And what I mean by that is, if you put these pictures side by side to last year, the difference just isn't drastic. I do think the iPhone 16 takes much better low light shots. I mean, they're over-processed to all heck, way over-brightened, but I think the average person just likes to see that they can take a dark picture and everything gets automatically brightened so they can see it. And while even the regular iPhone 16 offers a lot of camera functions that definitely increase its usability for photographers and creators alike, the average person who just blindly one-click snaps a pic without ever changing a setting or tapping to focus probably isn't going to experience anything better with their pictures 95% of the time. So that's what I mean. Most regular iPhone users can't discern any real improvements at this point, and they aren't utilizing the features and options that Apple keeps adding. Apple would get way more feedback from regular iPhone users if they added a telephoto lens and better zoom capabilities to this phone, even if it's like a faux digital zoom. Instead, they added photographic styles, which I sort of understand as an advanced image processing tool to tweak the dynamics of your shot beyond the everyday Instagram filter, but most everyone else is going to see this as just a bunch of filters. And I truly can't imagine people flicking through them as they try and get the perfect style for every scene they shoot. And then there's camera control. Now look, I get why Apple brought this new "don't call it a button" to the iPhones this year. It's yet another camera feature that Apple can advertise as they continue to emphasize the camera on their phones. But the thing is, camera control truly doesn't solve any issue I ever had with the iPhone. And not only does it not add anything to my day-to-day experience, it's actually become a bit of a nuisance. Now, let me first just say that camera control really isn't all that intuitive. I've come across folks who didn't know there was a squeeze or light press action, and the employees at the Best Buy couldn't discern camera control from the action button. If you do understand what camera control is and how to use it, the next question is, when do you use it? And my answer to that question has simply been never. I'm not ever switching up the aperture or exposure settings manually on this iPhone. I thought maybe zooming in and out would be the default camera control action for me, but it's just easier to pinch and pull like we've always done. Switching lenses is a one-tap on-screen option that's always there. And again, aside from a couple minutes after unboxing this phone, I've never since bothered with styles or tones. At least not so much that I need a physical button on the phone itself that's associated with them. Camera control also just isn't placed very well. For me, my thumb is too high or maybe too tall to use it in portrait. In landscape, it's a little more comfortable, but more than 50% of the time I take pictures in portrait anyway, and I just never felt the need to finger my phone like an old school point and shoot camera. In playing around with camera control the last 2 months, I can't help but think about what Steve Jobs said when he first launched the iPhone back in 2007. Aside from the home button, basically, the iPhone was first and foremost a multi-touch, all-screen device where you use your fingers to tap and swipe and pinch and interact with the ever-changing on-screen things that were changeable, that evolved, unlike a physical keyboard or a physical set of buttons that were always fixed. Camera control has added a couple random things since launch via the iOS 18 updates, but This is yet another physical button, yes, it is a button, that's been added to the iPhone. And much like the action button, I just don't see how this isn't a redundant and unnecessary addition that goes against the fundamentals of a touchscreen device. Something that's a little tougher to gauge on new iPhones now is performance. And I hate to say that because I really don't want Apple to give the regular iPhone a lesser processor like they did the last couple of years, even though they kind of did this year, since the regular iPhone has a regular A18 chip and the Pro iPhones get an A18 Pro chip. I just think that rather than seeing an outright speed improvement in day-to-day use, Apple should make strides in optimizing iOS to run as smoothly and as consistently as possible, and ensure that the big taxing tasks like AI integration and console quality games and photo and video editing all run as good as possible. And I do think that's what they're focusing on most now. You don't really see the charts we used to get when iPhones launched, where they'd say, the new iPhone is twice as fast, or loads web pages this much quicker, or launches games that much faster. None of that is discernible anymore from the previous year, but Apple does like to push the limits with that other stuff. And while I don't personally ever play those crazy games Apple is always demoing at their keynotes that developers say have console quality graphics, it's nice to know the iPhone can handle that in theory. The bigger push this year with performance, and by extension iOS, is with AI, and that's Apple Intelligence, of course. Now, I and plenty of other people have already complained ad nauseum about the fact that Apple Intelligence literally did not ship with this new iPhone, even though this was supposed to be made for Apple Intelligence. And we've groaned about the sporadic software updates and staggered feature releases and annoying waitlists that don't make a ton of sense. Okay, maybe I'm still not done complaining about it. But the bigger problem now is just that Apple Intelligence hasn't really been all that good or that helpful. It hasn't fundamentally changed how I use my iPhone. It doesn't make doing things any better or faster. And sometimes it just adds unnecessary steps, like reading a notification summary and then reading it again in its entirety when the summary was just bad. I was actually all in on Apple Intelligence with the beta, but I've since turned off some of those things or gone about my day simply not utilizing them, like Genmojis in the image playground. I'll edit some pictures from time to time, and every once in a while the text suggestions or rephrases are helpful. But Siri has basically just morphed into a ChatGPT initiator, an upgrade from a Google search initiator, I suppose. But all this just doesn't feel like Apple Intelligence. It feels like a half-baked set of features built on the promise of more things to come. And it's also mildly irritating that arguably Apple Intelligence could be more widely adopted by just being an iOS 18 update for all iOS 18 devices. But Apple, I guess, has to keep Apple Intelligence for the new iPhones, so you upgrade, and last year's Pro iPhones for whatever reason, and a whole bunch of other random devices too, but seemingly not for the 95% of the population that has an older iPhone who could actually initiate Apple Intelligence's mass adoption. Finally, one of the biggest criticisms of the regular iPhone still is its lack of a high refresh rate display. And to that I'll say, yes, the criticisms are fair and warranted. I mean, there are literally like $100 Android devices with 90 or even 120 hertz displays nowadays. There's no reason the iPhone shouldn't have a high refresh rate screen as well. However, it's been shown time and time again that regular, everyday people simply don't know, can't see, or otherwise wouldn't care about a high refresh rate display, especially if they're coming from another regular iPhone that they've already been using for the last few years. If you've never had a Pro iPhone, and you've never looked closely at your friend's Samsung phone, then you probably don't know what a 120 hertz display is like. But if you have been using a high refresh rate screen on your devices the past few years, like most of my tech-savvy audience has, then using the regular iPhone 16 just feels like a step back in time. The screen visually still looks very choppy, and swiping and scrolling gives you the impression of using a capacitive screen from like 15 years ago by comparison. But this screen isn't for you and I. It's just not. Anybody who cares about a high refresh rate just isn't buying this regular iPhone, and they aren't going to go back to one either. I think the people who don't care about 120 hertz care more about screen brightness, or whether or not it looks colorful, or if there's a ton of glare or fingerprints collecting on the glass. Those are the real-world issues and experiences the regular iPhone users talk more about, rather than, oh bummer, we still don't have 120 hertz. With that in mind though, I need to stress that the display on the iPhone 16 hasn't changed or otherwise been improved in any of those ways either. So this entire rant about the screen was sort of a moot point. It's just the exact same screen as last year, and that just shouldn't be a surprise at this point. This year's iPhone 16 to me feels like an almost upgrade. A phone that had all the potential to be a must-buy, but that just doesn't execute as far as enticing the holdouts who haven't been lining up for the latest smartphones anyway. There's a lot that's new with the new iPhone this year, and that usually produces plenty of interest, but I and a lot of other people have felt that the new stuff is kind of a net negative or otherwise just not that enticing for one reason or another. But what do you guys think? Am I just a giant complainer? Is the iPhone 16 a decent enough upgrade this year? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.